Hello and welcome to our webinar today, Managing International Compliance Changes. My name is Ashley and I'm so excited to be your MC for today. Today we'll cover 6 steps you can take to achieve continuous compliance. Before we dive in, just a few housekeeping items. Friendly reminder that Avalara cannot provide legal tax advice, but we will answer your questions as best we can. Submit your questions using the Ask a Question box. Here is our safe harbor policy. Please take a moment to review while I continue on with some other housekeeping items. We are recording today's event. If you want to listen again or share it with a colleague, you'll receive the recording within the next 24 hours. The console you're looking at can be customized, so feel free to move the boxes around or rearrange to make the most out of your desktop space. The additional resources section contains related resources, including today's slide deck. If there are any resources you'd like to check out, go ahead, click them now, as the console will automatically close at the end of the webinar. If you have any questions, please submit them using the Ask a Question box. We will answer as many questions as possible during the Q&A time at the end of the presentation. You may also submit webinar troubleshooting questions there. The button at the bottom of your screen with the little chat bubbles is our group chat. We encourage you all to introduce yourself. I'd love to know where everyone is tuning in from today. I'm calling in from Ames, Iowa. Go Cyclones. So drop in the chat where you're watching from. If you have any technical issues, there is a question mark icon at the bottom of your screen with some suggestions, or you can reach out using the Ask a Question box. We are offering 1 CPE credit for today's presentation. For those looking to receive CPE credit, please note that we will ask you to respond to 3 of 4 poll questions. These polls will pop up on your screen for a limited amount of time, so please make sure you're ready to answer them when they appear. Please do not split or tile screens on your computer, as this can affect the poll questions. You must also attend for at least 50 minutes. Once you have met the CPE requirements, your certificate will be available to download in the CPE certificate box on your screen. Click the icon to access it. It will open in a new tab and be waiting for you at the end of the webinar. Your certificate will also be sent to you in a post-event email. If you experience technology issues that prevent you from qualifying, please let us know as soon as possible using the Ask a Question box so we can see if we can assist. Lastly, if you have a moment, please respond to the survey questions on your screen or following the webinar. Next, I'd like to introduce you to today's speaker. So with us today, we have Michelle, the International Customer Programs Manager at Avalara. Michelle has enabled thousands of our customers to utilize tax technology and improve their compliance, and we are so excited to have her here today to share her wealth of knowledge on this topic. So with that, I will go over to our agenda slide and hand it over to you, Michelle.
All right, thanks, Ashley. I'm happy to be here. My name is Michelle Biquette, and I am calling in from Bainbridge Island, Washington, home of the original Avalara headquarters. So here's the plan for today. Hopefully you attended our last session where we talked about recent changes in Europe and also global trends in VAT compliance. Today we're going to talk about how to manage and navigate all of those changes. And when we're done with that, we'll open it up for some Q&A. Okay, so let's talk about the first step. Actually, do I have a high level? Nope, I don't. All right. Now, let's not even get that far. Let's start with a question. First question is, Are you currently selling internationally? Yes, you already are. No, but you plan to soon. No, maybe in the future. Please let us know what you're doing today. Okay, now we can get into the content. So if you're only doing business in one country, it's pretty straightforward. Maybe you're even doing business in two countries. Most of our customers can handle local compliance if they're just trading in one or two countries. You might not need software or outside services to do that. Once you start going cross-border, especially if it's in multiple countries, it can get really complicated. The types of goods or services you sell, how you go to market, how you're shipping goods can really complicate things. Part of this is that every country is different. They all have different rules, different forms. You're dealing with people who are speaking different languages. Registration requirements are different everywhere. And you're dealing with tax authorities in a different country and maybe another language. This typically requires dedicated tax expertise, either within your own company or with external resources. All right, so we're going to talk about the 5 steps of international compliance. First thing is understanding where you need to trade. Then it's actually getting registered. Then calculating tax, e-invoicing if that's an issue, then reporting. And then we want you to repeat that cycle because it's going to change all the time. So let's talk about the first step, understanding what your obligations are. The good news for all of you is you are already doing business in the most complicated country in the world. The US is the only place I'm aware of that has state and local registrations. What most of the rest of the world does is have a country level registration. Exceptions will be Canada and India. The way it works in most places is countries will have a distance selling threshold. This is kind of like economic nexus, where you can do a certain amount of business without having to register. Once you have a certain amount of revenue in a given country, then you have to get registered for VAT. What we are seeing across the globe is that countries are reducing and eliminating distance selling thresholds. This is particularly true for digital services. There are currently about 100 tax jurisdictions in the US, or excuse me, in the world, not counting the US, that will tax digital services. And a lot of them have $0 or very low thresholds. The other thing that we're seeing is that distance selling thresholds are being eliminated for low value consignments of goods. So if you sell stuff and the average order is less than about $150, there might not be a distance selling threshold for you. So we're seeing that pretty much everywhere in Europe, as well as Australia, New Zealand, and Singapore. So the challenges for you are understanding what the thresholds are in every single country. And this can vary on how this is calculated. Sometimes it's annual, sometimes it's all time. Sometimes they only count taxable sales. Others look at total revenue. And then there's Switzerland that wants to know your total global revenue. So a little bit different everywhere you go. So you have to keep track of what your revenue is everywhere, but then staying up to date on the registration laws. This isn't something you can do once and then forget about it, because thresholds and rules do change, and they're changing faster than ever. So Avalara can help. In the US, we offer nexus studies and tax exposure analyses. We also offer a VAT assessment, and Avalara Tax Research offers information for the US and Europe. So let's talk about the VAT assessment. This is an online tool that you can access via a mobile device. It walks you through some questions and gives some recommendations about where you might need to register. However, a better method is to call your customer account manager, and they can schedule a call with me or one of our VAT specialists in the UK. And if you haven't used Avalara Tax Research before, it's an excellent tool. There's a lot of information in there. There's both information about how products are taxed, how they're taxed, but also registration information. and that works for the US and the EU. All right, on to the next question. How confident are you that your business is registered everywhere in the world that you should be? Totally confident, you got it covered. Maybe you're already registered in every country in the world. You're pretty confident, you're not sure, or oh my gosh, I'm absolutely terrified. I didn't even know this was a problem. Okay, moving on to the next step. Once you understand what your obligations are, you have to actually get registered. And there are a couple challenges. Every tax authority in the world is going to have different forms, different definitions, both of what your products are and the nature of your business. And based on that, there might be different registration types. So just like in the US, we might have sales tax and seller's use tax, they'll have different registrations for distant sellers, people who sell, or companies that sell goods, companies that sell services. And every country is going to have different supporting documentation requirements. Another challenge with international is you've got language barriers, both with your customers, with tax authorities, whoever is actually doing your registrations for you. And in some countries, you need local representation. Most tax authorities want to be able to knock on your door to audit you. So if you aren't physically located in a country, they may require you to appoint a fiscal representative who shares liability for your tax. So let's talk about how Avalara can help. What we're going to talk about next will fall under what we call our licensing and fiscal services. So we do offer fiscal representation where it's required. And then for registrations, you've probably used our sales tax registrations. That same team does our Canadian registrations and US business licenses. Today, we're going to talk about VAT registrations. So that covers most of the world except for the US and Canada. So if you have used our Avalara license management tool, our VAT registrations product is very similar. So it's an online tool that simplifies and speeds up the process of getting registered in more than 80 countries. It's a step-by-step guide for getting the right information to us. It's a dynamic user experience, so you know what your current progress is. And then we have humans help with generating your actual VAT registration forms. So this is a secure online portal. This is what the first couple of steps look like. First, you'll log in, give us some company information. These little tiny black dots you see here are information buttons if you have questions about what any of these things mean. Then you upload your supporting documents, so things like a passport and a certificate of good standing. Once we have all that, we can generate your forms, get them off to the tax office, and then we can coordinate with the tax office to make sure that, that you get registered. And we can send you this information, but here's our current coverage. It's important to note that our VAT registrations and managed VAT reporting service is currently only available for distant sellers. So we can't do your registrations and returns anywhere that you have another company. We do have another software solution if you are established in these countries, but for today, these are just if you're a distant seller in these countries. All right, let's move on to step 3, calculate. So just like sales tax, when you're calculating VAT, rates are just the tip of the iceberg. So we also have to think about place of supply. So where is tax applied? Thresholds and de minimis for different products, exemptions, product taxability, and whether you are registered and what type of registration you have in those countries. So let's look at all of the things that might change how your products are taxed. So again, kind of like in the US, what is it and how does that country classify or define that particular product or service? Who is the buyer? Are they exempt? Is it for resale? Where was the sale? And are you registered there? Is your customer registered there? When was the sale? So again, things change. One date might be different than the other. How much did the sale cost? We're especially seeing this come into play now with low value consignments. How many were sold, as far as I'm aware, just applies to US sales tax. But these are all the things that we look at when we're deciding how something should be taxed. Okay, and on that note, just want to make sure that we're all clear that the same product might be defined and taxed entirely differently in each jurisdiction. So, so every country and every state might define it differently and might have different tax rules. When you're doing business internationally, there could also be a difference for VAT, sales tax, and customs and duties. So just an example of how this could impact you. Let's say you sell books and groceries, because why not? The UK will zero rate both of those. Denmark will fully tax those at their highest rate of 25%. Belgium will put those at a reduced rate of 6%. So most countries will have 3 or 4 different tax rates. They'll have a standard rate, a reduced rate, a zero rate, sometimes a super reduced rate. But they're all going to have different methods of deciding which types of products fall into which category. So again, it gets a little bit tricky to just have a tax table, because you first need to understand if anything you sell is subject to a reduced rate. So how can we help with that? 2 ways. First of all, with tax codes and AvaTax, if you're already set up using our tax codes for sales tax, those will work just about everywhere in the world. So that will help with the VAT and GST calculation. We could also help categorize HS codes, and that will help with how products are taxed for customs and duties. One important thing to note, if you have done your own HS classification, probably through your 3PL, there are 6 to 12 digits in an HS code. The first 6 are universal. Those work pretty much everywhere in the world. The last 4 to 6 are country specific, and depending on how that country treats your goods, it could really change how it applies customs and duties to those products. So in order to calculate customs and duties correctly, we've got to have your HS codes. You're welcome to use the ones you already have, but we do recommend recategorizing. These change every 5 years. There was a major overhaul in 2021. So if you haven't categorized your HS codes for a year or 2, it's time to do a refresh. If you are shipping goods in between EU countries, these are also required for your EU intrastat reports. So they're called commodity codes on that return, but it's good to have them updated for that. All right, so how do we help with all of this? First of all, getting HS codes classified. Avalara tax research can also help with taxability research and figuring out how your products are taxed. And on the calculation side, we do that with AvaTax. So that gets you real-time calculations of sales tax, VAT, and duties. Your AvaTax codes work just about everywhere in the world, and the HS codes tell us how to treat your goods for customs and duties. All right, so let's talk about how we actually classify HS codes. We have a couple of different methods. This is our managed tariff code classification. This is where you just send us your product catalog, tell us what it is that you're selling. We initially run that through some software. There's some human review to make sure that you aren't selling anything really exotic. And then we give you a list of your HS codes for everywhere that you're trading. All right, so now you've gotten through step 1, you know where you have obligations and you know what you're selling. Now we can actually calculate. If you didn't know, AvaTax works just about everywhere in the world. We have some level of determination service in every country in the world that has tax and doesn't have a trade restriction with the United States. So if you are trading internationally already and you're only using this for sales tax, all you have to do is go to where you collect and update your settings. So using AvaTax for VAT will absolutely reduce your risk of exposure. Make sure that you are calculating correctly, and this should also help with your reporting. So if you've been using AvaTax for quite a while, our VAT content has improved dramatically over the last few years. We added enhanced VAT determination for the UK and the EU early 2021, and we're expanding that to other countries now. So if you took my previous session, you will have learned that VAT is not simple sales tax. It's a completely different animal. So what AvaTax VAT can do is look at the place of supply, any exemptions. We look at liability to pay, whether you or your customer is responsible for tax, what the tax point is, so that's the date of the taxable transaction, and then finally we look at the rates. So again, if you aren't using this, talk to your account manager about how you can enable it. AvaTax will work really well in a lot of the world. Not all 1,000 of our connectors fully support it, so you'll want to talk to your CAM about the functionality within your connectors. So with that new content, there are some new bells and whistles in AvaTax. I'd like to introduce the concept of a VAT code. Now, this is different than an AvaTax code, which is a proprietary code that Avalara uses to understand what you sell. A VAT code is a series of data that helps your ERP or wherever you're doing your VAT returns understand how a transaction was calculated and how it should be reported. So if in the future you start using our VAT reporting solution, it's going to make it easier for us to consume that data and understand how to file your returns. Oh, I'm missing a very important slide here. All right, well, I'm just going to tell you about it then. The other thing we've added to AvaTax is invoice messaging anywhere that we have enhanced VAT. This is particularly important in the EU, where they have pretty strict requirements on what goes on an invoice. If you're using AvaTax, we can return invoice messaging back to whatever your source system is, and it references the EU or UK VAT directive that we applied to calculate tax. So your business customers will be very happy. So what you're seeing on this map is our current coverage. Anything in this sort of gray-blue color, we're going to have really good B2C content. We can do we can get the rate correct on B2B calculations anywhere that that has a reverse charge or just a different rate for B2B transactions. We will not have input calculations, so we don't have calculations on purchases for these lighter colored countries. Anywhere in dark blue, we are going to have very comprehensive calculation for B2C and B2B sales, as well as input VAT and GST. I need to update. We have new countries. Mexico, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, and Singapore have just been added. So this is old news, changing all the time. All right, so if you are using AvaTax, we can connect all the pieces of your global puzzle. So on the calculation side, making sure we know what it is you're selling, getting you current HS codes. We can calculate customs and duties, sales and use tax, VAT and GST, just about everywhere in the world. The VAT enhancements do support all of the EU and UK e-commerce reforms that we talked about last time. Same with Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, and other places that are introducing those. So what this means is that for your international customers, when they check out, they're going to have better visibility into the true cost. So you can provide them with true landed cost on their orders. All right, on to our next question. Are you using AvaTax outside the US today, or are you just using it for sales tax? Yes or no? Okay, on to step 4, e-invoicing. This is probably less likely for our SMB mid-market customers. If you're only established in the US, probably not an issue for you yet. But again, this is something that could start to change. And here's why. We're going to talk about the VAT gap. This is a problem everywhere in the world, but this is data for the European Union. The VAT gap is VAT that tax authorities believe they are owed, but isn't being collected, reported, and paid. It seems to continue to go up and up year after year. As of 2017, it was about 141 billion. I think it's quite a bit more now. So tax authorities are trying to find ways to reduce that gap. One of the ways that they are doing that is implementing digital reporting and e-invoicing requirements. What this does for a tax authority is reduce manual errors. Also reduces tax avoidance because they're able to see a lot of data both from you or from your customers. And they have a better idea before you even file your return about what should be on it. The impact on taxpayers is that, first of all, things are changing all of the time. As of today, most of these mandates are just for established companies that have a pretty significant amount of revenue or for B2B sales only. We are starting to see that shift to cross-border. I think Italy was one of the first countries where they wanted to see imports as well. And I would expect that in the next few years, we'll start to see e-invoicing mandates for distant sellers as well. If you are subject to any of these, this means that you've got to keep track of how they're changing. You will absolutely need to update your accounting systems and your VAT reporting process. You'll need to implement a solution for e-invoicing itself. It also means that you need to tighten up how you determine tax. So if you're calculating incorrectly, there's not going to be much time to correct that before you report it. And we talked a bit about this last time, so I'm going to go over it pretty quickly, but we're seeing a global trend towards tax authorities moving from a self-assessed summary periodic return that you can submit just about any way you want, paper, PDF, email it to them, upload it to a portal, to transaction level, high frequency or real-time reporting, and in some cases, government assessed reporting. What's important to note here is if you look at the orange box on your screen, anything within that box is a reporting requirement or e-invoicing requirement that you can't do without approved software. So e-invoicing 101, I'm not going to go too deep into this, but I think what's important to note is, first of all, part of the challenges are that every country has slightly different flavors, right? They require different data, data submitted in different formats, different frequencies, and how they receive and approve that data can change from country to country. This normally requires a massive amount of internal development because these requirements change all the time. It's really hard to maintain. You probably don't want to be doing this manually, but it's really not scalable to try to do one-off development. And in some places you aren't able to. So Avalara offers a solution. We have Avalara e-invoicing, and this is a solution that works for e-invoicing in 60 countries. We have e-invoicing for mandated e-invoicing requirements in about, I want to say 30 countries today. So what this does is extract data from your source system, convert it into whatever crazy format the tax authority has asked for, and then submit that data. One of the things that is unique about Avalara e-invoicing is we're using what we call Avalara Instruct, which is a unique intermediate format to convert and submit data. What this means for you is that once you implement Avalara e-invoicing in one country, it's really easy for us to do it in additional countries. So let's say you only have one country where you're doing this today, a new mandate pops up in another place you're doing business next year, we can get you up and running with that new e-invoicing obligation really, really quickly. All right, on to step 5, reporting. Before we do that, I would love to know how you are filing VAT returns today. Whether you do this in-house manually, if you're using a software solution, if you outsource it to someone, or a combination of any of those. All right, well, let's talk about what some of the challenges are in actually filing VAT returns. They're usually submitted in local language and currency. A lot of countries will allow submissions in English, but not everyone will. In the EU, there might be additional forms that have to be submitted. So things like your EC sales list or intrastat returns. Filing frequency and deadlines and payment deadlines are going to vary from country to country, and also based on how much revenue you have, whether you owe tax or they owe you tax, and whether or not you're established in a country. Some states have different rules about whether you can amend a return on your next filing cycle, or they might have special returns for that. They might also require an additional annual return in addition to whatever your monthly or quarterly cycle is. So the way that most of our customers handle this is usually one of, I'm going to say 3 different ways. The first way is they ignore it, but don't do that. You can insource, so you can file returns manually. This is hard. You can outsource to other providers. This is okay if you are only doing business in one region. If you're doing business in a lot of places, you're either managing a lot of providers or you're paying a massive accounting and consulting firm to do them everywhere in the world. So what we see more often is a bit of a hybrid model, right? So the ones that are easy, or you've got local language support and you've got a VAT expert in Italy, whatever that is, you can bring those in-house and then outsource the others. We typically see customers outsource returns where either the returns are really complicated and they don't have anybody within the business that can do those, or they'll outsource the returns where there's a lot of risk. So you have a lot of revenue and you want to make sure you get those returns right. So Avalara can support you with any of these methods. So our VAT reporting solution is a software solution that makes filing VAT returns a lot more efficient and a lot more accurate. So you would be able to use VAT reporting software to do your own returns in-house, but it'd be much more efficient. We're going to make sure you don't have any errors. You would still need some in-house VAT expertise to use this. Our other solution is managed VAT reporting. So this is where we have humans in our Brighton office using a version of our VAT reporting software to file returns on your behalf. So we can do registrations and returns in 84 countries. We can also provide fiscal representation wherever that's required. And we can do just about any type of return as long as you're a distant seller. So both your VAT returns, any supplementary returns. There's a better way of explaining that. So over on the left, you see the software solution. It gives you some data quality and efficiency improvements, but you're filing your own returns. Over on the right, this is humans in our Brighton office using software, but also providing some last mile filing and human review on your returns. So a couple of the benefits of using VAT reporting software, whether you're using it in-house, we're doing your returns for you, or you have an Avalara partner that has VAT reporting, to me, the biggest benefit is these automated data quality checks. We are looking at every single bit of information you send us and doing 160 different data quality checks to make sure that your data looks good, that everything was calculated correct before we start to report it. Gives you some time to go back to your source system and adjust that if you were calculating incorrectly or you missed some data. You'll have an opportunity to reconcile. Then we will generate the reports in whatever the local language and format is, and whenever submitting electronically is available, we can submit that. So again, you can use VAT reporting software in-house, you can in-source. If you do want to talk about that, let us know. Your customer account manager can schedule a call with one of our UK VAT reporting specialists. What most of our US-based customers are doing is using managed VAT reporting if you're a distance seller. Again, call your customer account manager and they can connect you with me or with our EMEA team. And this map shows you our current global coverage for VAT reporting. Couple of things to note. Brazil is a separate AvaTax solution. So it is its own thing. US and Canada are done in AvaTax. So we treat Canada just like it's the 51st state. If you're already using AvaTax returns in the US, just go update your filing calendar. We will have a separate solution for India as well, but we also support India with managed VAT reporting and VAT reporting. Rest of the world is going to be covered by our VAT reporting software, managed VAT reporting, as well as Avalara e-invoicing. All right, I think I already talked a bit about managed VAT reporting, but if you haven't used it before, I just want to make sure that if you are using AvaTax, you're aware that managed VAT reporting is a little bit different. Doesn't talk to AvaTax just yet, but the way this works is you upload your VAT data every month. And by the way, we don't care if that data came from AvaTax or not. If you are using AvaTax to calculate VAT, send us your data anyway. We run it through VAT reporting, so you get the same data quality assurance that you do with VAT reporting. Your client manager will take a look, let you know if they see any problems. We'll submit to the tax authorities, and just like AvaTax returns, we also help answer notices and communicate with the tax authorities on your behalf. So if you don't speak Polish and Czech and French, we're going to take care of that part for you. And we already covered this a bit in registrations, but this is our current coverage. So again, just a reminder, we can do your returns as a service wherever you're a distant seller, and the coverage may vary for goods versus digital services. So talk to your CAM about that. Okay, final step, which is not step 3, it is step 5. It is review and repeat. So we talked about those 5 steps. As previously mentioned, this is not a one and done. Just because you get your calculations and your return set up and you get registered doesn't mean you're done until the end of time. As your business changes and as regulations and laws change, you might have to reevaluate what your footprint is and where you need to register. Go get registered. You might need to update how you're calculating tax as well. So could mean some updates to AvaTax. E-invoicing requirements are changing all the time, and returns change all the time. So countries tend to release new forms every year or two. So if you're filing manually, it could become a challenge. So we really want to help you ensure that you're seeing international compliance as a cycle, right? So ensuring continuous compliance, make sure that you're always doing all these things on a regular basis. And I'm going to just keep on clicking on all these buttons till they all turn up. So skip right through these because I think I've already talked them to death. We've already gone through this quite a bit, but as we review those 5 steps, Avalara does have solutions to help you at every step of the process. We've talked a bit about the products. Let's go back to the beginning and identifying your tax footprint. if you aren't sure where you have a problem and you need help with that, again, call your CAM. They can set up a call with me or our EMEA team to help walk you through that. Okay, I'm also going to give you guys a whole bunch of resources. We have flown through a lot of information really fast. Avalara has several resources available to you. Our blog and our VATLive website will have a lifetime supply of white papers and webinars about compliance across the world. Most of what you'll see will be related to the United States and Europe. But we do cover the entire planet. So if you go to our VATLive website, we have country guides available for you. So you can go look at countries where, let's say, you're either thinking about doing business or you already have a lot of revenue, see what your requirements are there. If you're using AvaTax and you haven't had a look at our VAT enhancements, I would encourage you to do two things. First of all, talk to your CAM, find out if your connector fully supports it, or if you're using our API, we have an excellent developer guide that explains what all of the new updates are and how to implement those. So that'll walk you through what's new, what countries we support, and what you need to do, whether you're an e-commerce provider, if you're selling B2B, if you sell on marketplaces, or if you are a marketplace, this will tell you everything you need to do to get AvaTax updated. And again, just to let you know about other resources we have available, lots of white papers available. So let's talk about when you should call us, right? Maybe you just really want to talk about that. You want to talk to me or your CAM about it? Cool, I'm happy to do that. But if you're expanding, we'd love to understand what your plans are and make sure that you're prepared for any international compliance challenges you might have. If you're finding you have a lot of customer demand, we have seen a massive increase in cross-border trade. A lot of this is driven, well, most of this is driven by customer demand. So let's say all of a sudden your product takes off in a particular region, you have no idea what to do about it, give us a call. And also changing obligations. So if something changes and you think it might impact you, or worse, the tax authority has told you it impacts you, give us a call and we can help you manage that. All right, so thank you. We've gotten through most of what we wanted to today, and now we will open it up for questions.
Michelle, thanks for that presentation, and thanks for all the time you put into this. For those who missed it, Michelle actually did a webinar last week also on VAT, so that is another great resource that you can check out. We gave an overview of VAT and some of the trends, so definitely check that out if you want some more on this topic. So now we'll get into the audience Q&A questions. We've had a lot come in. If you have a question, you can drop it in the Ask a Question box. So first up, I have queued, how do I update AvaTax for iOS?
Ooh, good question. And it depends. If you purchased AvaTax after, let's say, Q1 of 2021, you'll already have our VAT enhancements enabled in AvaTax, so you can skip the first step. But if you've been with us a really long time and you didn't know AvaTax worked outside the US, the first thing you need to do is enable the VAT enhancements. I would open a support ticket, ask them to do that for you. If not, ask your CAM and I can give you instructions for finding that. The next thing you need to do is, once VAT enhancements are enabled, you'll enter your iOS information at the company details level. And after that, you just need to go turn on VAT in 27 countries. One thing to note with iOS is when you add a new country to AvaTax, it's going to pop up a second screen after that, after you first check the box, And it's going to ask you two questions. It's going to ask if you're established in that country, and it's going to ask if you're the importer of record. For IOS or any other low value consignment regulation, you want to uncheck establishment and uncheck importer of record. Hit save. What that has done is it's turned on calculation only for low value consignments in those countries. So that's how we manage UK, EU, Australia, New Zealand, Switzerland, Norway, Singapore low value consignments. If you do have direct registrations, so let's say you're doing business in the UK or Australia, New Zealand, and you want to charge import VAT on the higher value consignments, just turn on the importer of record settings. So it's going to take you a while to do all 27 countries, but each country is maybe 20 seconds. So it's really not that bad. And again, if you have any questions, just open a ticket with our support team and they can walk you through it.
Okay, got it. Next question we have, will I have different requirements if I sell goods and services?
Yes, absolutely. So let's start with services, and in particular, digital services. So we touched on this in a little bit, but there are about 100 countries, or 100 country or regional level jurisdictions that tax digital services. So 90 of those will require a foreign seller to get registered. So if you've never been to that country, you don't know anybody there, but you are selling anything that is delivered electronically, there are about 90 countries where you'll have to register for digital services. Good news is Avalara can help you with 84 of those. So that's digital services. Goods and services will be a little bit different. In most countries, there's still a distance selling threshold for goods. So if you're selling stuff, you can usually sell, well, I'm not going to give you a number because they're changing all the time. It could be $10,000, it could be $500,000, just depends on the country. Where we're seeing that change is with these low value consignments. So pretty much all of Europe, Australia, New Zealand, Singapore will have low value consignment thresholds. Now, where this gets really tricky is what if you sell both, right? If you sell both digital services and goods, in most countries, you can get a single registration. Doesn't matter. So you can report everything on that same registration. However, if you're doing business in the European Union, you're going to need 2 or 3 registrations depending on what you sell and what the value of the goods are. So digital services is easy. You get an OS registration. Low value goods is easy. You get an IOS registration. But if you're selling above the 150 threshold and you want to ship DDP, then you're going to look at direct registrations in the countries, at least where you have a lot of revenue. So the good news is once you have a direct registration, you can report digital services, and goods pretty much everywhere. That was a lot of information to ask a quick question, but yes, goods and services are different, mostly based on what your obligations are.
Yes, all great info.
Actually, what I could say on that before I move on, sorry, just one more thing. Some countries will have simplified registrations for digital services. So, EU is a great example, but there's some other places where you have a simplified registration and return. So let's say you are a software company or a gaming company. You've only been selling your software or games for a long time. Then you start adding a physical product. You might need to update your registration type. So.
And hello to your cat.
I know my cat is here.
So our next question, one of the attendees is planning to expand into Germany. How much time should they plan to get registered there?
Okay. Believe it or not, I have not memorized the turnaround time for Germany, but it depends. So we are seeing delays across the globe on registration times, and we do track those. So if you're doing a registration with us, we've submitted your application and you're wondering where the heck it is, I've actually put a list of the average times in our help center, so I can add a link to that in our resources later. But I would say if this is a forward-looking plan, I would plan on at least 12 weeks just to be safe. It used to be, we'd say it takes somewhere between 6 and 8 weeks in most countries. It is just all over the place right now. Countries that used to be really fast are taking 12 to 14 weeks. Other places we're seeing really quick turnaround times for IOS and OS registrations. So far, the worst one I'm aware of is Mexico. And don't ask me why I memorized this one, but the last time I heard it was 472 days once we submitted the application for our customers to get a VAT ID. That is definitely an extreme example. In most places, it's going to be 4 to 12 weeks, though. So good job thinking about this in advance. So yeah, I would plan on about 12 weeks.
Your memory is impressive.
Talk about this a lot. It's not my first time.
All right, next question. Can I do my own VAT returns with Avatax reports?
Good question. So we have added new reports in Avatax. So if you go to your reports, there's I think it's called VAT and reverse charge and something or another return. So there will be a lot of data in there. However, we don't provide data in a format that would make it very simple for you to just fill in some boxes on a return. I know we have some sales tax reports that will help with that. VAT, it's just the raw data that Avatax used to calculate the transactions. So your best bet is either using VAT reporting or managed VAT reporting, or if you have another way that sometimes ERPs will have a way to ingest that data and generate draft returns, but nothing in Avatax just yet, but lots of good data.
Okay. Can you register in European countries in anticipation of sales like you can in the US?
Oh, yeah, well, we sort of covered that with the Germany question. So it depends on the country. So some countries will let you register just for fun, right? If you think you're doing business there, or maybe you have a customer that wants you to register. Others will ask for proof of your business activity. They'll want to see invoices to customers in their country or something like that. So it really just depends. Again, that's something that we can help you figure out and talk about registration timelines.
Okay. And then I think this will be our last question for today. I'm registered for MOS. Do I need to re-register for OS?
Okay. All right. I think we covered this last time, but we're going to do it again. No, you do not. If you already have a MOS return or MOS registration for digital services, you don't need to do anything to switch to OS. That's going to convert automatically. So you do still need to add the UK, because if you have a MOS registration, it means that you got registered before Brexit. So if you're selling into the UK, you'll need 2 registrations now, one for the EU, one for the UK.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you for everyone who asked a question. And thanks for attending today. And we want to thank Michelle for her time today and putting together this presentation. I do have a couple items to close out today. So for those who qualified for CPE credit, you may download your certificate in the Earn Certification box or in the post-event email. Also in the post-event email, you'll receive a link back to this console to view the on-demand recording, the slide deck, the resources. And then upcoming, we have quite a few CPE eligible webinars this quarter, including those that are on your screen. So please check out avalara.com/webinars to see all of our upcoming events. Thank you again for joining today, and this concludes today's webinar.
Thanks, everyone.